Tell me what your life was like before you died.
I was a single parent. I had 3 children. They were 3, 4, 5, and 6. So the 2 older ones, in the afternoon, and the 2 older ones were in school. And the youngest one was down for the afternoon nap. And that was significant because my kids were very active. And so the fact that it was always, I had 3 experiences on completely different days. I had no idea they were coming, or I would have noticed. And so the first experience, I'm doing dishes. And as I say, the place is quite quiet. And there's a window above my sink, and I can see into the yard. And in the yard, there's a tree, an apple tree. And I'm just looking at the tree, and I'm really not thinking about anything. And all of a sudden, I became the tree. And it was like my consciousness was taken over. And I literally became that tree. And the tree was me. There was no separation at all. And I was every kind of life form that I could think of. I was the bird in the tree. I was in bug that the bird was going to eat. I was everything. And fish and other kinds of animals, everything I thought of, I was it. And that was the end of the experience. It was like maybe 30 seconds long. And then the next experience was a few days later. And this time I'm wiping fingerprints off the hall wall. And I'm just looking at the wall. And again, I'm not thinking of anything. And the place is quiet. And all of a sudden, I'm seeing an atom with the electrons going around. And then I see our solar system with the sun and the planets going around. And then that expanded to our galaxy and sister galaxies, what I call sister. I think they're called clusters. So it was like the micro to the macro universe. And while I'm getting this expansion, I'm getting messages that this didn't just happen, that there was order and planning and an intelligence behind it all. And that was really cool. I really enjoyed that. But then I got a message that I really did not like at all. And that was the end of the experience. And that message was that my being was intricately connected with the operation of the universe. And I couldn't get that. That scared me because I thought, what do you mean? What am I supposed to do? I'm really, this was in 1973. So I really had no idea about any of this kind of thing. And then another thing that happened, again, as I say, that was the end of that experience. And then a few days later, I'm in the living room picking up toys and tidying up. And I felt a presence in the room with me. And it was like I couldn't see anything. I could just see my living room. That was it. But there was more love. Like it was like I was being surrounded and impregnated with more love than I could ever imagine. And it felt like I was connected somehow to this whatever. I called it positive energy force. So this positive energy force, I felt like I was connected. And then I heard words very clearly that said, this is where you came from and this is where you will return. And that was the last of my experiences. But that one taught me that not to be so frightened of death, because this was such a beautiful experience. It was during my experience. I started researching when I was 16, and this was when I was mid-30s. And before that, when I was so frightened of death, that was what the whole thing was about. I wanted to find out what happened when you died. And my mother, being an atheist, had told me I'd just disappear. And I was an 8-year-old when she told me that. I didn't want to disappear. And so I wanted to find a better answer. And that was the beginning of my studies. And then that branched out from there. And it was only in those days, because we're going back to the 1950s. And so in those days, there was only religion. There was no spiritual kind of thinking at all. And so I studied all the religions and their histories. And what I found out I was looking for was truth. That's what it down to. I was searching truth. But First of all, we create our own experiences. The death experience is what we think should happen. So that's point one. So that's why the variation between them and why different cultures will have different kinds of experiences is because we create it. The other thing was that almost universally, everybody would feel this oneness. They didn't call it that. Some did, some didn't. But they would say, I felt like I was connected to everything. And everything was connected to me. They really were very blown away by that. That was very significant for quite a few people. Well, many people, because we are steeped in this existence, we see ourselves as physical. And we continue to see ourselves physical. We've seen our body lying there, but we take a body with us, an ethereal body, and we created an ethereal world. And that's our creation. So whatever is our favorite place, I want to go to the beach. Those are the kind of experiences. But there's another experience that even goes much, much deeper. And these are people who enter into the light. Now, there's two levels of that. There's those who enter into the light, continue to see themselves as themselves and experiencing personal experiences, and then leave and communicate with the light, because the light is a being with intelligence and great sense of humor. So, but the other thing is that people will become the light. They melt and absolutely are the light. And when they're there, they become creators with the light. And they can go back to the beginning of the beginning of the beginning. And there is no real beginning, but back to the beginning of our universe and watch how it created and how it all evolved and gain vast amounts of information. And sometimes they bring that information back and sometimes they don't, unfortunately. But anyway, but the point is that they lose that concept of self and become the light. And when they lose the concept of self, they're aware that they were that person at one point in time, and that they were these other light forms, not forms, but reincarnated lights. And so they remember all of those, but they're just learning experiences. It doesn't have any major significance. And so I really think that is the most significant death experience of all, is when they melt, become the light. One of the things that's asked of the light is which religion is the best one or the right one or the whatever. And repeatedly people are told whatever religion fits for that person there isn't one. So if it brings the person close to source and closer to God, then reincarnation, go back to being source. And here's how I explain it. If we could just imagine being this incredible intelligence, and I don't even know how to say it, but just this entity that's amazing. And it's all alone in nothingness with just blackness around, no sounds, no sight, nothing. And if that were the case, creation would happen in a second, in a nanosecond, because the entity would not know that it was, or even if it did know it was, it wouldn't know anything about itself. So creation is to give back to source. That's what creation's for, and that's what we are. We are giving back the life that we live gives back to source. And so that's the most important. Some people see it in detail, some people just the highlights, and how we affect other people and how and that's the main point, is it doesn't matter about our wealth or, how famous we are or any of that. It's how we affected the world and other people. And so that is the significance. But the life review, there is no judgment, kind of, because we judge ourselves, but we take the consequences of our actions by reliving the experience we provide for others. Before we come into this life experience, our souls, the soul that says, okay, I'm going to be a person, chooses a task that they want to accomplish in this life. And then with that task, they choose all the elements within their life that will help them to guide them towards that task. And so they will choose significant people, not everybody they ever meet, but the main people that are going to be in their lives that will guide them, or that the interaction will be significant to guide them in the right direction. Then there's the events in our lives, whether, and not every event, but the major events. And that will help us to lead us in certain directions. And then there's the ourselves. We choose everything about ourselves, the color, the nationality, the country, every single thing that is going to be significant. It would be our baby toenail if it was significant to guiding us. However, there is a caveat on that, because sometimes we don't get to do whatever it is that we came here to do for various reasons, because not everything is meant to be. And I don't like this statement of everything is meant to be, because it's not. Some things are meant to be, but some things that are meant to be don't happen. The person that we are going to be interacting with leaves this world before we get to that. Or some accident happens and changes things. Or we just goof off and say, I don't want that. And we're just going to be, And so everything isn't written in stone. And because there is no time at the spirit level, it doesn't matter how long it takes us. We can have 5 lives if we want to accomplish our task. The point is that we are going to accomplish that task, whether it's 5 or whether it's 1, it doesn't matter. And some people will ask, take me to another planet where there's life, in this universe, and they will be taken there. Okay, here you are. and then they'll also be taken. One person I remember asked to take me to the most advanced, and he went to this place where they didn't communicate verbally. They telepathic, and they were almost surreal. They were, this life form, but almost like a ghost almost. But then they asked to go to one of the least evolved planets, and they went to something like, caveman kind of thing, or very primitive life forms. I think that love is the love that we feel is our reconnection to the power or the essence of our being, which is love. I think God's essence is love, and that love is the power that it creates with. So that would be one thing, but also consciousness. So I see God as a positive creative force. I don't see God as a person or a being or any. As a matter of fact, to be honest, I don't even think there's a light. I think people see light because we need something to relate to. But I think in reality, source or the positive energy doesn't have anything. It's just being, intelligence. Love is the essence of our being. Love is the essence of who we are. We are created in love, and we are love. And so my motto at the bottom of when I send things out is to be the love that we are, because that's our reality. Ultimate of giving back to source, to being, to helping source to be, to experience and know itself.